Welcome to the Blue Collar Wealth Club podcast. I am Sheena White.
And I am Jerry Garcia.
We're talking about a topic that a lot of people, go through. Obviously, most people don't start out as business owners. The transition from being an employee to being a business owner and how to kind of navigate all of that stuff without going crazy. For you, kind of tell me, like, what do you think was the biggest step or the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome in going from being an employee to being a business owner?
One of the bigger things is the accountability, right? As an employee, you're always held accountable to somebody else, and they will
Hopefully.
let you know that you're always held accountable to them. And this needs to get done, that needs to get done. Switching that mindset to being self-employed or being a business owner where you're just responsible for everything and nobody's telling you what you need to do or how to do it. If it doesn't get done, nobody suffers but yourself. Unless you're in a business that employs multiple people, then you're not only hurting yourself, but you're hurting your entire business, which can affect the lives of multiple people.
For me, when I went from being a business owner or from being an employee to being a business owner, the biggest thing I had to get over was the lack of a consistent paycheck.
Yeah.
That was really tough
one.
for me. I always joke around that I was like a reluctant business owner. The first 4 years, I hated it. I really, really did. And I actually went back to a job.
Okay.
It was right after I had my daughter. She was about 4 months old, and I got a job offer. I'm going to go take this job. And it's a very, very lucrative job with a company doing sales. Then we'll have more money. It'll be great. That did not happen. Once they took out taxes, took out gas, took out childcare, because then 2 little kids, so then I had to pay for daycare for them. I made a whopping $323 a week.
Oh, wow.
But we had to hire someone in the business to replace me, and she was much more than $323 a week. So it's actually in the negative. And I was like, okay, I just gotta keep going until I get commissions. When I get my commissions, then it'll be better. It was not better. It was worse. It was awful. Yes, I had a paycheck, but it was like pennies, and I was not treated great, and all of the things. That job lasted for literally 7 months, and I was like, okay. It wasn't working in my business because that person did not replace me very well, and it wasn't working in my home life because I was gone all the time and my kids were at daycare constantly, and it was just not great. Every time I think to myself, oh, I don't know if I can keep going, I remember that 7 months. I'm like, no, I have to keep going.
I think you're not truly a business owner if you don't think at least once a month.
For real. Like, I was just I'm in a mastermind, and I was just in a call on Wednesday, and one of the people was like crying, and she's like, I can't do this. I'm just going to throw in the towel. And she's like, you guys all have your stuff together. And every single person in the chat was like, what are you talking about? No, we don't. We're all in the same place as you. And I feel like you keep going, and the problems change, but you have to embrace there being problems, and you have to embrace the uncertainty. And I'm not so good at that. So that's why maybe
and
I
think,
struggle.
and I've been bringing this up a lot lately, but I think where this all stems from is the majority of business owners are not entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And this is born of the E-Myth, which is the E-Myth Revisited, which is a book you should read if you haven't as a business owner. It's a great book. Completely explains the mindset of most business owners, especially those that start with a skill of some sort. There's 3 different, I don't know what he calls them, but there's the technician, there's the manager, and there's the entrepreneur, right? And most people start as the technician. You are the person who does the thing for somebody else. Eventually you reach a point in time where you're like, I don't want to do this thing for that person anymore.
I want to do it for me.
I want to do this thing for me. I want to earn all that money. You're looking at how much this guy charges for this job versus how much he's paying you. And you're saying, why should I do all the work for only this fraction of that total amount?
Yeah.
So then the next step, right? You start the business. But now you're not only the technician, you also have to manage yourself. And you also have to handle all the back end stuff, all the expenses, all the books, everything that comes along with being a business owner. So now you're going, but now it seems like you're working more, but after you're paying someone to do the job, and you're paying yourself even less than you were making as the employee. And this is where a lot of business owners get stuck. There's a very simple reason why most businesses fail within that first year to 3 years. Cash flow. Most people don't know how to run a business. They're not business owners. They're not entrepreneurs. They are skilled laborers or skilled people
Yeah.
who started a business because that seemed like the most viable next step.
Well, I mean, it seems better, right? Because then you get to own your own time. And so I think every single positive thing also has, it's like the yin and the yang. Like,
Right.
okay, yeah, you get to own your own time, but you also have to decide how to allocate that time. And so you can end up squirreling a lot, and then you end up just like cycling and not moving forward pretty readily. You get to own your own pricing and your own cash flow, and you get to be in charge of that. But then you are in charge of that.
Right.
And so if you're not so good at it, then all of a sudden, instead of having that steady paycheck.
A lot of tradespeople are not numbers people.
Yeah.
Unless you're a bookkeeper, you likely aren't starting a business and expecting to be good at doing books.
What I see a lot is people not pulling that estimate through, right? They do all the math up front. They're like, okay, how much is this going to cost? The materials, how much labor? Okay, then here's my markup. Okay, then here's my profit. And they do all the math. They really, I have seen the most beautiful estimates that then go and they become the estimate, and then the job happens. And then when it goes to production, it's gone. Whatever goes, like just do the labor, do the cost, whatever. If we took that estimate and we pulled it all the way through the process.
Like you said, right? You have to revisit it. Creating this beautiful budget that looks great on paper, but then not realizing that every time you do that same job, it actually takes an additional day that you budgeted for. So you have to pay that crew for an entire more day, and it sets your next job behind an entire day.
Oh, yeah.
The cost of that carrying over by not revisiting that estimate to make sure that it's accurate.
You're staying on time and on budget. Right? Because I've seen people all the time, we don't have budget. Estimate is exactly that, an estimation of what we think it's going to cost.
Right.
And then we have to look at it later and say, okay, what is the projected versus actual? How do we learn from next time?
Yeah, where did it go awry? Why did my estimate say this and my actual become this? And figuring out if that's correctable or if you just need to adjust your pricing to accommodate that. And that's a big key. And these are all very key factors in making the business successful. But, a lot of times, going back to the original point, when you start a business, people expect to be these business owners instantly. And what happens is there is that in-between step where you are self-employed, where all you've done is taking your job and created another job for yourself where you are also your own boss.
Yeah.
Which can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing, right? You talk about taking your own time back, and that's great. I have more flexibility, but that flexibility ends up bleeding into your personal life more often than not, and there is no off switch when it's your business. When you clock out at the end of the day, when you're an employee, you go home, you don't think about it anymore. When it's your business and something comes up and you feel like, I'm not gonna be able to sleep until I deal with this, that's your time flexibility, that's yours, and that time flexibility gets blurred as to what is personal time and what is business time, and it becomes very hard to differentiate. Instead of creating this business that runs and operates and brings you all this money, you've created this job where you, instead of working 40 hours a week, you're working 60, 80, 100 hours a week, and you're making less than you were making before, and you're not sure how to get past this point in time, and you want to throw it all away and start over in a new job.
Well, sometimes even when we are making good money, that thought of like sometimes wanting to just burn it all to the ground does not go away.
And this is not overnight. You can't just decide to be a business owner.
He talks about this like minimum taking like 2 years. It's a process.
It's a process, and it's something you can build toward, but it's something that you have to understand that there is a difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. And you have to know that there is that difference to have that light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's the pattern that a lot of people get into is they're self-employed and they just don't see a way to have their business work for them without them involved.
Well, and you have to set aside your ego a lot too, right?
Because a lot of it has to do with you thinking that you can do things better than anybody else.
Yeah. Well, and you have to always tell my clients that I strive to make them useless in their business.
Right.
Like if we've done it right, like you are useless. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And I tell them at the beginning, because it is a process, but I want them thinking about that day one, because the more useful you are in your business, A, the less it's worth. B, you can't pass that hit by the bus test. So many other things. And then you're strapped to that and you can't go off into other ventures and stuff like that. But it's hard to feel like you're not needed, especially in your business where it's like your baby. And then you're like, oh my gosh, you're telling me I'm going to be not needed in my baby? But it's just like with children, as good parents, your job is to one day be useless.
Yes.
Like for real, if your kid is 40 and you're still like useful to them in a very real way, that means you're probably weren't a very good parent, honestly.
Yeah, the idea is to teach your child to be self-sufficient member of society. The idea is
Exactly.
to build your business in that same fashion.
And it's hard, right? It's hard to see them leaving the nest and all those things, but it's the same with your business. It's hard to be like, to relinquish those controls to your team. But when you build a great team, like I have a client, and just the other day we had the leadership team, we'd figured out this new process. And so we showed it to the CEO. We're like, hey, we had this thing, we had this great idea. And he's like, you know what I love the most about this? And we're like, what? He's like, I love the fact that I had nothing to do with it until now. He's like, this is awesome. And I literally had no input until this exact moment in time to tell you all that this is awesome and yes.
And be prepared for some failures. I mean, that's just part of it. That's part of the journey. The goal of our podcast, of our YouTube channel, is to, kind of try and shorten that curve for you so you can find that path a little quicker.
Yeah.
Than, the person before you.
You can borrow from the failures we've seen, so you can be certain that those things do not work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We try to eliminate a few of those paths for you and guide you the right way.
Right, on this maze. Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's, it's one of those things where if you have it in you and you have that business ownership, kind of calling, then you just have to stick with it, and you have to be willing to fall down that 10,000 times.
Absolutely. I think that's pretty well covered on this topic. Got plenty more to discuss, and we'll be back with a lot more insight and a lot more revamping of this same kind of content. A lot of overlapping what we talk about, and a lot of it's it's long term.
Yeah.
We speak in long term. We don't speak in get rich now.
That sounds fun, but I feel
great.
like it's not real. So we're going to speak in the real. And, go to bluecollarwealthclub.com to join our community and to gather our free resources so you can really dive in and get some more of that certainty.
Till next time.
Talk to you later.